here's how testing goes. Okay. So today is Wednesday. Okay, we have our review. Tomorrow's Thursday, then we've got Friday.
Woo, weekend.
Okay. There are 3 parts to this test. I'm giving you class time Thursday and Friday to take those parts. So you could take 1 and 2 on Thursday, 3 on Friday. You could take 1 on Thursday, 2 and 3 on Friday. You could take 1 on Thursday. Then let's say you wanted to, if you don't have class, I'm not saying you can get out of class to do this, you could take the second part the next hour and then the third part on Friday. Like, I will give you 1 hour per part.
So you can't like pause the part.
You cannot pause a part in between. Once you start a part, you must finish it before you leave.
Even if you stay after school.
That is actually very nice.
Wow.
Okay, so if you do part 1 in 20 minutes, that does not mean the remaining 40 minutes gets added on to parts 2 and 3. Okay? Each part gets its own hour. Yes.
So if we like do the first part tomorrow, or we do like half hour, we probably should start the next part.
You can, but remember, when you start the next part, you have to finish it before you can leave.
You said it already.
We're doing all that first.
Now, a rule of thumb, it will not take you an hour per part. Okay?
So I can finish all 3 of them.
You could. Okay? A rule of thumb that I was told as a professor, from a professor, as I'm not a professor, so I wasn't asked for that. Anyway, moving on. One of my professors said, whatever amount of time it took her to take the test, it would take us 4 times longer. That was just kind of in generally. Now, some students might take longer, some would take shorter, but it was about that. So I took the final myself, and so the whole thing. And so it took me half an hour. So that means it should take you guys about 2 hours to take the test. Okay? Now, I didn't actually time myself, so it's give or take half an hour, huh?
How many did you get wrong?
I don't think I got any wrong.
Oh.
You didn't grade yourself.
I'm going to use it as the key, so I hope I didn't get any wrong. Anyway.
You didn't do that.
Is there like only like 1 or 2 questions on each topic though?
Pretty much. Okay. So, as far as studying today, or getting ready for this, okay, you got to think about your timing and how this all works. If you want to take it after school, that's fine. But, you know what's on each part. So if you know you're not going to do part 3 until Friday, and you've got tonight to study, and you want to study with parts 1 and 2, you can ignore 3 until Thursday night, that kind of thing. If you have to know your time, though, and what you have time for. Okay?
I need to take 1 too.
Okay.
Can I take all 3 on Friday?
I think I have more in the folder.
Does that work?
Oh, in that packet. I'll give that
Would
to you.
you, like, I'm not saying I'm gonna do this, but could you take all 3 parts on Friday, like if you have open class hours? Like if you want more study time? Like if.
Yeah. Okay. The first thing we have to do is, because it's log base 10, okay, we've got this log base 10 here. We want to exponentiate, so I want to use a base 10 and make these the exponents. The problem is we have to make the whole side. We can't do these individually. So before I do that, I need to put them together using this plus sign. And remember, when it's a plus, we have to multiply them together. So we've got log base 10 of 5x times x minus 1. And now when I have it as one thing, now I can exponentiate. So I use 10 because the logarithm was base 10 of log base 10 of 5x times x minus 1. And then 10 to the 2. So this became this exponent, and this became this exponent. And then because of base and base being 10, we have Tetris effect here, so it's just 5x times x minus 1. And then over here, I don't have Tetris effect, I have 10 squared, which is 100. Then we start solving. So we have 5x squared minus 5x equals 100. Move the 100 over. take out a 5, make it easier to factor or box it out. And then we set them equal to 0. But you always need to double check. Because if you take this -4 and plug it in up here, if you plug it in there or if you plug it in there, if you plug in -4, it's going to make this negative. You can never have what's inside the logarithm be negative. So that -4 is not okay. The 5, however, if you plug that in, that works. So 5 is a good answer. So for expanding, you always start with your coefficient, and so we'll start with 3, choose 0, and then you take your first thing to the 3rd power, the biggest exponent, and your second thing to 0. Remember, this exponent matches what's on the bottom here, and these always add up to your original exponent. And then we go to the next one. We just follow our pattern of 2x. Now it goes down 1, and then the exponent of the second one goes up 1. Down 1, up 1. And then down 1, up 1. Okay, then you do your coefficients. And you also, this is one of the biggest places people forget, is that 3 has to go to both of them. So it's 2 to the 3rd and x to the 3rd. And then 6 to the 0 is 1. So these make this. And then we have this next one is going to make our next. So we get 3, choose 1, that's 3. Once again, I make sure that squared goes to both of them. And then 6 to the 1 is 6. So it makes that whole term. These all get multiplied together. Do the next one, that's going to be another 3. Exponent goes to both of them. So it'll be 2x. And then 6 squared is 36. And then we do this one, which is 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. And 6 cubed is 216. Multiply what you have now, so all your numbers get multiplied. So 1, 8, and 1, 8, and 1, so we get 8x cubed. Plus, we take 3 times 4 times 6. Multiply those. And then 216. Now, so we're multiplying those together and we get 216. Also, I want you to make sure that when you do this, you look at these, it goes x cubed, x squared, x, and then nothing. It shouldn't be x cubed, x squared, x squared. If you do that, you made a mistake. Or you shouldn't have x, x, and then another x there. Okay, so please pay attention to the pattern that's going on. It does happen sometimes you get the same number over again, but your exponents should have a pattern. Okay, so in this one we're looking for horizontal and vertical asymptotes. So for horizontal asymptotes, it's those rules, those 3 rules. This one is top heavy because my exponent of 5 is bigger than the exponent of 2. So because it's top heavy, there is no horizontal asymptote. If it's bottom heavy, it would have been y equals 0. If it was the same, we would have taken and divided the numbers in front. Vertical asymptote is when you take the bottom and set it equal to 0. So 6x squared plus 2x equals 0. I'm going to take out an x. Set both of those equal to 0. Solve the ones that I need to solve. And so my vertical asymptotes, I have 2 of them, x equals 0 from right here, and x equals negative 1/3. That is ugly. From right there. So those are your 2 different vertical asymptotes. So here we're graphing rational functions. For our x-intercept, you are plugging in 0 for y, which means you're plugging in 0 here. So if I plug in 0 there, I have 0 equals 2x squared over x squared minus 1. And if I multiply both sides by x squared minus 1, these guys cancel out. X squared minus 1 times 0 is just 0. So really it's just the top equals 0. Divide by 2. 0 equals x squared. Square root both sides. X equals 0. So if you plugged in 0 for the y value, you got 0 for the x value. So that is your x-intercepts. Now if we're trying to figure out our y-intercepts, we plug in 0 for the x's. So if we plug in 0 for x, we've got 2 times 0 squared over 0 squared minus 1. So that's just 0 and 0. So we get 0 over negative 1. We get 0. So this was really boring because both of them end up being the same thing. So if I go to draw, so far I've got that. Yeah. Okay, vertical asymptotes. That's when we take the bottom, set it equal to 0. So, let's see here. Take the bottom, set it equal to 0. Add 1, so x squared equals 1. Square root both sides. X equals plus or minus. The square root of 1 is just 1. So x equals 1 and x equals negative 1. So those are my vertical asymptotes. Horizontal asymptote. Well, those are the 3 rules. This has the top exponent and the bottom exponent are the same, so we take what's in front and divide them. 2 divided by 1 is 2, so y equals 2 is our horizontal asymptote. Slant asymptote happens only when the top is 1 bigger than the bottom, so we don't have any slant asymptotes.
If we did have a slant, how do you figure root again?
You would take this one divided by this one, and everything before the remainder is your slant. I won't worry about it.
Don't know.
Okay, now we have to figure out the rest of the points. So if I make a table, I have to plug in points. So we plug in 2, 3, 4, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. Plug in 0.5, negative 0.5, mainly because if you look, we have a negative 1 and a positive 1, so we need to figure out stuff in between here. So if we plug in those, we can figure out stuff. So you start plugging in points up there for x. So if you plug in like 2 for x, we have 2 times 2 squared over 2 squared minus 1. So we got 4 times 2, that's 8, over 4 minus 1 is 3, so we get 8/3. And this one's going to be symmetric, so I can put 8/3 for the negative 2 also. Because whenever I plug in a negative, it'll cancel out to be positive, so we get the same answers. Plug in 3. Two squared is 9, times 2 is 18. 3 squared is 9, minus 1 is 8. 8 goes into, or not 8, 2 goes into 18 9 times over 4 times, so 9/4. Plug in 4. So 4 squared is 16 times 2 is 32. 4 squared is 16 minus 1 is 15. That's a fun one. So 32 over 15. So we can graph some of these. So what is 8/3? That's 2 2/3. About there. 3 would be 2 1/4. And so we see it's going to be kind of hugging the line there, and going up and hugging there. Same thing's going to happen over here. So now the annoying part is this in-between part. So if we plug in 0.5, anybody have any questions at this point though before I keep going? This is a very exciting problem, isn't it? I think I'm falling asleep. Okay. So if we plug in 0.5, what is it? 0.5 squared is 0.25 times 2 is 0.5. Did I do that right? Sure. And then 0.5 squared, and then minus 1 is negative 0.75. And if you take 0.5 divided by 0.75, okay, that is not it. You get 2/3, so negative 2/3. And that'll happen on both sides, so it's going to be kind of a parabola-looking thing. Only it doesn't go on forever. Okay, so that's what that one looks like. That was very exciting. I'm real glad we asked.
Expanded logarithms.
So we are going to expand our logarithm. If it's on bottom, it's a minus. If it's on top, it's a plus. Plus for multiplying, minus for dividing. And because it's on the bottom, it's dividing. So we have log base 2 of 3 plus, so these are all pluses right here, log base 2 of x to the 4th plus log base 2 of the square root of y. Because these are on the bottom, they're dividing, so it's going to be a minus log base 2 of z squared minus log base 2 of r cubed. Then we have to deal with our exponents. Remember, this is y to the 1/2, so we need to move the 1/2. So we've got log base 2 of 3 plus 4 log base 2 of x plus, I'll bring the 1/2 out in front, log base 2 of y minus 2 log base 2 of z minus 3 log base 2 of r. And I'm done. Because I don't want to have any exponents and I don't want to have more than one thing inside the logarithm. All right, so you're finding the domain. Domain is everything but what makes it wrong. So as far as like you can't divide by 0. So it's everything but what makes the bottom equal to 0. So you box that out. So we've got x plus 4, x plus 1. Set those equal to 0. X equals negative 4, x equals negative 1. So the domain is all but x equals negative 4 and negative 1.
All, but what doesn't make it equal 0?
What does make it equal 0? Everything but what makes it equal 0. Vertical asymptotes fills in those holes.
See, wasn't it better when I was asking questions?
So you're told on this to factor, which means just find the bubbles. You do not have to set them equal to 0 and solve. So what you're going to do is you set up a box. So we've got 2x squared and a negative 15. It's going to be 2x and x. To get 15, it's either 1 and 15 or 3 and 5.
We're just doing 5.
Yeah.
No
Mm-hmm.
sign.
Mm-hmm.
No sign.
Mm-hmm.
3 plus 5 is 8. 3 times 5 is
So then 2x and 5 is 10x and 3x.
Guy has a negative.
So we have 2x plus 3 and x minus 5.
That's and then he says
That's all you have to do. No, if
Oh,
it's
you
just
mean
factor, then we're done.
it's solving. Oh.
If it says find the zeros or something along those lines, you gotta set them equal to 0 and solve.
Can you upload these? You're gonna
Yeah, she
upload
will.
these to
She
Classroom?
would.
Pause it.
Oh.
Stop it. Still running